Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today is Monday, which means it's time for an episode of Loadout, the series where you guys, the viewers, get to pick a gun and customization for me to use. The way you do this is you leave a comment down below, letting me know what kind of weapon and accessories you'd like me to run with, and I will pick one of the top rated comments for the next episode. Today's top comment comes from Ben Haresh, who says the Israel Defense Force Loadout. Our infantry choice will be the combat medic. Our primary weapon will be the MTAR-21, which is closest to the Devore. We're going to slap a reflex sight on there, an ergo grip, and a muzzle brake. Secondary will be the CZ75 to represent the Jericho. No attachments for that guy. Then we're going to be running with a med bag, defibs. Our field upgrade will be Grenadier so that we can carry multiple grenades. He says in real life the IDF carries about 9 grenades, which seems totally crazy to me. I can't imagine that that's universal for everyone, but hey, the more the merrier. And we'll be using the vine leaf camo if available. Hello LevelCap. The IDF is one of the most skilled, experienced, and moral armies in the world. Somebody certainly has a bit of national pride here. Nothing wrong with that. The MTAR-21, also known as the Micro Tavor X95, is the standard issue assault rifle in the IDF, replacing the M16A1. I saw you talked about the Tavor several times, so I made this loadout for you. Play Rush and Conquest on infantry, desert, or urban maps and help your team as much as possible. Have fun level. By the way, MTAR is more used than the original Tavor. It's just an updated version with rails, AR mag release, etc. Now, I've always been fascinated by the Tavor and the MTAR. Frankly, a lot of modern weapon design is really cool, really advanced in terms of just cleaning and reliability and cool functions and features of the weapons. The MTAR is definitely a very modern rifle, and I imagine the relationship between the MTAR and the Tavor are much like the M16 and the M4. The M16 came out first. It was bigger, it was larger, more accurate at further ranges, but not necessarily ideal for like room clearing just because of its size. And the MTAR is a more modern version of the Tavor, and it's smaller, but still has a respectable barrel length because of its bullpup design. And that's something that isn't always represented in the Battlefield games, is that because of the bullpup design on these weapons, you have less front end weight, but you still have a full length barrel on the internals of the weapon. So in theory, the accuracy of the gun shouldn't really be sacrificed. But enough about the real world design aspects of this weapon. It's a cool gun in Battlefield 4, and it should be feared on the battlefield. It's got a 900 round per minute rate of fire, putting it right up there with the AEK in close quarters. It can do absolutely massive damage. It has a very intense recoil though, and in my opinion, if you're going to use this weapon, you have to understand how to control the recoil, and frankly, there's just some attachments out there that are going to make it that much better. In fact, I personally wouldn't run the MTAR without an angled grip on there to reduce that first shot recoil, because it is insane on this gun. You have a 2.6 first shot multiplier, and the recoil in general is very high, especially the side to side recoil. So the first shot can really jar the gun left and right, and your accuracy is going to suffer on that aspect, and it's very hard to compensate for left to right recoil instead of vertical recoil. So you may even want to consider putting a compensator on this weapon, but I would say definitely an angled grip. Now the setup that we have here with the ergo grip and then a muzzle brake definitely doesn't help me out at those medium or further ranges, and I felt in a lot of situations not only was my red dot kind of just bouncing all over the place, but just at medium range, even if my dot was on target, my bullets weren't hitting because the spread of the weapon and the spread reduction of the weapon is being hurt so much by the attachments. It is worth mentioning also that this gun has decent hipfire accuracy, so if you are inclined to run with a laser sight and turn it on for some of that close quarter action, you could definitely make use of this weapon just simply hipfiring it in CQB. And if you were modding this weapon to be primarily a hipfire weapon, then the ergo grip would actually make a lot of sense. But I do like to do a lot of aiming down sight, and it is really helpful for medium range engagements. And if you don't want to limit yourself to purely close quarters, then it does make a bit more sense to try and outfit this weapon to do more accurate fire at medium range. I feel like you can hipfire it regardless of the attachments on it in extreme close quarters and be just fine anyway. Now I did try the gun out in some rush game modes, and it was not faring well. I was not enjoying being relegated to such a close range requirement. In rush games, you guys know that sometimes you just get stuck in situations where you gotta cross like 100 meters, you know, with like very little cover. And if you don't have a weapon that can down people at range, you're screwed, basically. If someone peeks you and you need to spend your whole magazine just to try and down them at further ranges, then you're running with the wrong gun for that situation. So the MTAR is definitely more of a TDM weapon, or a gun that you want to use defensively, just hanging out on the point, letting people get close to you where you can outdamage them with your 900 round per minute rate of fire, because the further and further away your target gets from you, the less and less effective this weapon becomes. And generally speaking, that is kind of a universal truth for all weapons in Battlefield 4, but a lot of guns are designed to fare really well at long range. The MTAR is not. Now, if I was going to nitpick this loadout a little bit further, I would say the reflex sight is not my ideal optic in this game. A little bit too much optic housing for my personal preference. It's still a very, very good red dot sight, but again, if you are comparing apples to apples here, it's very hard to beat the Coyote sight and the Cobra sight in this game, though I do see some ESL players running with the reflex sight. It might just be personal preference or things that they're used to. After hundreds and hundreds of hours of playing, you might just like this optic better. The one thing you do have to watch out for with the MTAR, especially in close quarters, is the fact that you're shooting so quickly, 900 rounds per minute, and you only have a 30 round magazine. If you spend that entire magazine, you're going to have a 2.7 second long reload. So being mindful of your magazine and how many bullets you have left is very important with this gun. Even if you just have one left in the chamber, you will get the faster reload of 2.35 seconds. And it might not seem like a huge difference there, because we're talking about a third of a second difference, but in first-person shooters, a third of a second is a lifetime. I mean, people can go from full health to 0 in a third of a second in this game, so it makes a big difference. Now, for balance purposes, DICE has decided to give bullpup weapons in this game longer reload times in general compared to weapons where you reload the magazine in front of the trigger mechanism. And this seems to be relatively accurate, where the mechanics or the operation of a weapon are pretty simple for standard rifles out there. But I've also heard the counter argument where if people learn to shoot on bullpup weapons, or they just use them a lot, they can get incredibly fast and proficient with them. So it's hard to say if a bullpup weapon is actually harder to reload than a standard weapon. I'm sure it varies from gun to gun. And it would be kind of interesting if maybe there was like a roleplay aspect to the game, where if you played a certain faction or something, they would be more efficient with operating certain types of weapons. Like Russia would be good with AK weapons, Israel would be good with bullpup style weapons, the US would be good with like standard M4, M16s. I don't know, we're getting a little complicated there, but it's kind of a cool concept to think about. Now, overall, the MTAR is a fun little weapon to use. It's definitely not my ideal gun because it's so effective in close range that I would rather just have a shotgun instead of this gun, because it is really ineffective at medium and longer ranges. I'd rather just close the distance and use a shotgun. Anyway, that wraps it up for today's episode of Loadout. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to leave your comments down below for next week's episode, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.